Hello everybody, and thank you for watching this video. Today we're going to be looking at marketing. Last time we looked at sales, today it's marketing. Again, we're looking at different pieces of the business, a little bit like the different pieces on a chessboard, and getting to understand a bit more about what each one does. And for this, we've got another special guest on today. We've got Andrea Hardiman from All About the Message. Good morning, Andrea.
Morning, thanks, Joe.
Lovely to have you on here and talking together a little bit about marketing and especially marketing strategy and helping people to understand this. So if I was to just link back briefly to, as I said, last time we did sales with Glenn, we still sometimes hear people talk about sales and marketing almost in one breath, closely together. Mm-hmm. Is it right to do that?
Well, ideally, yes, because if you are a big organisation, sales and marketing sit side by side, or they should. It's like having your hand in a glove. If the hand is marketing, the glove is sales, and they should be working in tandem together to achieve the business objectives. But obviously, they are very different. And I get asked this a lot by potential clients, or if I'm just networking. So, you know, marketing is all the activity you do to raise awareness, to spread the message, to talk about your brand values, to talk about the products and services you offer, to create the interest, to spark an interest. And that's the job of marketing. And then really anything that comes off of that, so any leads, any interest that goes into the funnel, then that's up to the sales team to ideally speak to those potential prospects and convert the leads into sales. Right. So marketing does the groundwork first, if you like, blows the trumpet, creates the fanfare, and then the sales teams would go in and talk to the prospects individually, listen to their pain points and challenges, and then ideally convert them into a sale.
Right, so they're quite dependent on each other then, really, aren't they? So sales depends on marketing doing their job to get the leads, and then marketing depends on sales doing their job to make all that work worthwhile.
Absolutely, and also it's a sharing of information. So if marketing are going out there and they're talking about a certain product or service, or talking about some brand values or a brand story, then they need to make sure that the sales team have all that information and fully understand it. So when they speak to prospects, the sales team can then reiterate the same communications, the same messages, so it's all joined up.
Mm-hmm. Great, okay. Now, when we're thinking about running a business, we tend to want to put some kind of a strategy in place. We might have a business strategy or a business plan. Now, does marketing just fit into that, or does it actually need its own strategy in addition to the overall business strategy?
Sure. So in answer to your question, marketing does need its overall own strategy. But whatever you do with your marketing will fall out of the business strategy and the business objectives. I was working with a client yesterday, and before I start any marketing and look at her strategy, I talk to her about her business objectives. And I'll try to encourage her or any client to set some SMART objectives so I can really understand where they're trying to take the business, the goals, the turnover, the extra customers, the profit, introducing new products, whatever the business strategy is. So I need to get an understanding of that. So then I can then fit the marketing strategy to support those business goals. So it is really, really key that I understand that, just to make sure that they align up and they work together. So yes, a marketing will definitely drop out of the business strategy, and it will have its own plan, its own strategy, its own goals.
Great. Okay. You mentioned SMART objectives there. Do you want to just say a bit more about that in case people don't know what they mean?
Yes, I just tend to say it because it comes natural to me. So it's an acronym that you apply when you're setting objectives. So SMART means specific. So your objectives are really specific. So it wouldn't be like, I need more customers. The M is measurable. So it has to have a target. A is actionable. So you make sure that it is actionable and it's not a woolly objective. And I'll give an example in a minute. R is realistic. So you're not saying, well, I had 400 customers this year, we're going to go for 4 million next year. Obviously, that's not very realistic.
Yeah.
And then T is timely. So you set a time frame. So for instance, a really woolly objective would be, oh, I just need a few more customers. A smart objective would be, I would like to increase my customer base from 50 to 100 in the next 6 months. Ending end of October 2021 or wherever that may be. So so you've got that SMART is installed in the objective, what you want to achieve. So you've got the figure, you've got the time frame, it feels realistic, it's actionable, and so that is a SMART objective.
Yeah, great. Thanks for explaining that. It's really useful to be able to measure things like that, because for one thing, you can talk about return on investment for everything you've done, can't you? So
absolutely. And also, when you're setting objectives, you need to understand where you're going. It's okay to say you want more customers, but you need a roadmap to get from A to B. So if I'm going to grow my customers from 50 to 100 in 6 months, that is really setting a bit of a roadmap for you to really get your teeth into and to understand as a business owner. Obviously, they can be way more complex than that. You could set very specific ones, which I'll say, I want to gain, I'm making this up, 50 new customers in 6 months through my Facebook channel or through my Facebook acquisition channel, say. So they can be very specific, they can be very general, but as long as they are smart, then that's what you need.
Yeah. Now, in my book, Doing Business Like a Grandmaster, I'm taking an analogy of chess across to business and seeing how they work together. And in there, I break down the process that we go through before we make a move, whether in chess or in business. And I say that there are essentially like 3 phases to it. First of all, you're assessing the situation, so taking stock of everything, understanding what's before you. In the light of that, you then form a strategy, which then goes on to give you a plan that you follow. And then finally, you're looking at calculations where you're thinking, well, look at what if scenarios. If that happens, how will I react, and so on. How well do you think this applies to marketing, this sort of assessment, strategy, calculation sort of model?
Well, I apply a very similar approach in how I work. So right at the beginning, I do some analysis and an audit. It's a marketing one, so it's based on positioning, it's based on messages, it's based on the brand, it's the story. So I'm looking at that, looking at my clients versus their competitors. So I'm already getting a feel for what's going on with their brand in their marketplace. So I'm doing that kind of audit and analysis. And then I move into, if you like, the strategy and planning. So I set my objectives. Of course, they're going to be SMART. Out of that comes the strategy, and out of that comes the tactics. And then really it's all about execution, so running your marketing, and then measuring and looking at your whatever channels you're using, looking at your results and seeing how they're doing and tweaking accordingly. And that is kind of a continual loop. So really, it keeps flowing, because obviously all the measurements and everything that you do from your marketing and looking at the results, you have to continually look at them and tweak them to make sure they're performing at their best. And then that goes round. Then you might decide, actually, I'm just going to tweak my objectives slightly, or I'm going to tweak the tactics that I use. So it's definitely a continued loop, and obviously has great synergies with obviously what you're talking about in chess, because you're continually evaluating, monitoring, looking to see what's happened, because your marketing is live and it's happening all the time. So you just need to keep on top of it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I tend to find that I think a lot of people can easily misunderstand what strategy is. I mean, there's a quote from a book which I forget the author now, but he essentially said, well, if you don't do any assessment first, you're not creating a strategy, you're creating a wish list. So it was got to be based on something. And then similarly, a strategy or a plan is not something cast in stone, never ever to be changed. It's something to keep coming back to, as you say. It's a dynamic process. It's not just a once done, never to be repeated sort of thing. But yeah, it still seems that people misunderstand strategy. And one particularly common one is people seem to misunderstand strategy and tactics as to what the difference is between the two there. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'll also touch on objectives. So obviously objectives are the what. What are you going to do? So increase customers or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
The strategy is kind of more around the how. So how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to look at inbound marketing. I'm going to look at creating a better customer journey, that sort of stuff. And then the tactics are the very small bits of activity that make up the strategy. Again, it's all the little things that you may do to deliver more customers. So for instance, tactics, there's so many out there, but tactics could be, I'm going to go networking, I'm going to generate lead magnets, I'm going to have some landing pages on my website, I'm going to improve the customer journey on my website, I'm going to have some quarterly promotional offers that I'm going to run some social media campaigns through. So those are all tactics. They are the little bits of activity that drive the strategy, which then drives the objectives of getting more customers, etc., etc. And they always go in that order. So it's objectives, strategy, tactics.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think sometimes in businesses we can see people getting caught in the tactics, thinking, well, do I put an advert on Facebook or not? And do I put a video or do I put an image, without actually thinking about the bigger picture? Now, obviously, without naming any names or anything, have you found when you've come into a business that you've had to get them to take that step back to understand strategy before reconsidering those tactics?
Yes, and I mean, the beauty of me coming into business and working with clients is that obviously I have no preconceived ideas of what their business is and how it runs and any challenges. So I'm coming in and I'm learning all of this, and I'm coming in at quite a high level, and I have an independent view. So at this point, I can actually say to them or highlight certain things which I think need more work or that we need to concentrate on. And I take a very collaborative approach, and I just try to work with them so they can understand then how it all fits together. And I do say to them that, marketing, if it was a vegetable, it would be an onion, right? Because of all the layers. So you might be doing Facebook ads, or you might be doing telemarketing or whatever it is, but all the layers need to work together as tactics to then deliver the strategy and to deliver the objectives. But when I come in and talk to clients, as I said, the beauty of I have is I have none of these preconceived ideas or thoughts. And then I can really quickly pick up and help them either tweak this or stop that. And I apply what I call a start, stop, continue. So I do this with all my clients. So it's, what activity do you want to start? What do you need to stop? And what do you want to continue? And we look at that across the board. And when I work with them in a workshop. And so that's kind of the approach I have. But I always say to my clients as well, marketing is the consistent dropping of breadcrumbs. It's not I've done my Facebook campaign and I'm done. So I'm like, well, what would you do after that? And how would you nurture your customers? And what else would you do? So it's very much a consistent path of activity over a long period of time.
I like that analogy, actually, the sort of like the path of breadcrumbs. You sort of think, well, if you get someone to follow you, you don't dump the whole loaf in one place and hope they find the rest of the way.
I love these food analogies, totally. I mean, it's exactly that. You could start dropping a few Facebook and Instagram breadcrumbs, and then you might decide to do a lead magnet and have some landing pages, and they're all breadcrumbs, and it's the sum of the parts. And it's the sum of the parts, it's the layers on the onion that build your marketing, grow your brand awareness, create more visibility for you, get you talked about more, which then generates leads. So and that's how it works. And I always say to my clients, marketing isn't a one-hit wonder. And it's not, I've done my plan, I'm going to file it, I'm going to put it away. It's continually evolving as your environment evolves, and as your customer base evolves, and as your products evolve. So it's always moving. It's a moving feast.
Yeah. So when you're coming into a new situation with a new business there, you're going to be drawing up that assessment of the situation so that you can plan your strategy. what kind of approaches, what sort of tools could you use to assess a situation to feed into that marketing strategy and plan?
Gosh, there are so many, and I do have a few favourites. So as a real start of 10, I use a SWOT analysis. So it's basically a grid: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Generally speaking, strengths and weaknesses are more internally focused within the business, and opportunities and threats are externally in the environment. So I will do a quick SWOT analysis, and usually this is after I've done my audit, looking at competitors, looking at marketing messages, getting a feel for the business. And then I would do a quick SWOT to summarize that, but also to initiate further discussion and understand what's happening internally in the business, things I may not know about. So I do like a good SWOT because it's really easy, really quick. The other one which I've used is a Pestle Analysis, Pestle. That is more externally focused around the environment. So it stands for political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental things.
That covers a lot of bases, doesn't it?
It does, especially useful probably at this time where we are with lockdown, but it just helps you keep a track of things which are happening outside the business, which may impact new products, new ideas, or in a good or a bad way. So I quite like that one. The other one I really like, and it's called a business model canvas. I actually call it a business model canvas SOAP, because SOAP stands for summary on a page. And it's a one-pager. It's a bit like a grid with different sections, and it captures all the fundamentals of the business on one page. And so you might have, what's the proposition, who are the customers, what's the segmentation, what are the revenue streams, what are the costs, what are the channels. And that is a really good one-pager at a very high level to capture everything, which is really, really useful. And that's why I call it a summary on a page, because it has to fit on a page.
I can imagine that being very useful, because often we get reports and bits of data get buried in reports, and to try and draw it all together can be quite difficult when you've got half a dozen different documents and that going around. But having that summary on a page like that means that people can see at a glance how everything is fitting together.
And also it's really good because that can then feed into the SWOT, for instance. So if you're looking at revenue streams, or you're looking at the cost section in that document, you might suddenly think, actually, we now have opportunities to increase our revenue streams for, say, developing a new product. So that would go in the opportunities box of the SWOT, for instance. So, and then that's where you take those opportunities and expand on them. So those two can link really, really closely together, and I quite like that. And then following on from that, the last tool I'm going to touch on, because I did it at university, it's just one of my favourite, is something called Ansoff's Matrix. And Ansoff, ANSOFF. And what that does, it looks at existing products and new products, and existing markets and new markets. And again, you've got a quadrant. So you can plot where you want to be. So do you want to diversify and develop new products? Well, that would tie back to the opportunities box in the SWOT, which would link back to your business model canvas, you see. Or on the matrix, you could decide, actually, we're taking existing products and existing markets and we're going to increase our penetration. So that's a really useful tool as well. And to be honest, most of these are very simple graphical tools. You plot something on an axis, or it's a one-pager. Very easy then to change and to tweak. Great things as well for discussion. Great tools to use. But there are so many. But I think those are just some of the ones I like to use when I'm coming into a business, first of all, just to help me really understand where they're trying to go, where they are now, and opportunities for the future.
Well, they sound that they apply to all sorts of different businesses, really, on all sorts of levels. Certainly, I think the SWOT analysis is probably an easy place for people to start. Very familiar in business. That one's been around quite a long time, and I think that sounds like it's going to work really well, whether you're a one-man band or an enormous corporation.
Yes, absolutely. And whoever you are, it makes you, I think, learn more about your market, learn more about your competitors, and also with the Pestle Analysis in particular, just learn more about what's happening in external environments, which obviously could affect your business going down the line. But yes, they're really easy tools. Any size of business can use them. As I said, I particularly like the SWOT because it's just quick and easy to do right at the beginning. But there are so many more out there that I won't touch on because I will just talk forever. But yes.
Yeah, I think it's good that idea of bringing in the broader environment as well. Though I can understand that because it can be easy to get lost inside your own heads dealing with your own internal processes, yes, and that sort of thing. And it's important to get that broader picture.
It is, and I was with a client yesterday, and slightly digressing, but just wanted to touch on the broader environment because we were talking about building her target customer avatars, the personas, and we ended up starting to build two. And she said to me, well, where do I get this information from about my target customers? So we had a really good feel for who they were, but we wanted to add more detail. And I said, well, actually, you've probably already got some of your ideal customers as customers. So go and chat to them and just ring them up and just say, would you mind helping me? I'm doing some research. Can you tell me the sorts of, I don't know, brands you like to buy? What sort of magazines you read? Are you on social media? So what channels? And she says, wow, that's, and that's what you should do. Tap into your customers, tap into the environment around you, and just see if they can help you with a bit of market research. Because in the end, that market research, that insight from them will help you to further develop your products and services, which they will want to buy because they solve their problems. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely, yeah. And that reminds me of a video that we recorded with Jamie Allen on making the most of the customers that you already have, quizzing them like that. So I'd very much encourage people to watch that video as well to delve a little bit more into that topic. But yeah, if you've already got someone that's bought off you, then you can kind of ask them why in a way, can't you? And
exactly. Yeah. Why me?
You? Yeah.
Exactly. Why me versus the competitor down the road that may do something similar? And that you will find that they will often tell you just these little nuggets of information. And it might be, well, it's because I just love the look of your brand on your website, or actually your FAQ section was really clear. And I thought, actually, yes, this is what I want. But you might not know that. So those little gems of information are just gold dust.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've got these various different ways of looking at our situation to draw up that kind of strategy based on these various tools and talking to our customers and so on. Now, once we've got a strategy, once we've started implementing it, how do we keep an eye on it to know if it's working or not?
Well, it depends on the tactic. So it depends on the activity that you're doing and the channels, obviously, that are part of that activity. So, these days, we're quite fortunate that the amount of digital channels we have all have their own analytics and metrics. So really, you need to be tracking whether it's page likes, engagement, follows, whatever it may be. So looking at those analytics for each individual channel, just to see how they're working, and then obviously you can tweak the channels, the posting frequency, etc., etc. You can tweak that accordingly. But also, don't forget, as we just talked about, speak to your customers, do some customer analysis. You could do a little survey, plenty of survey monkeys out there. You could even run a little focus group, maybe on Zoom at the moment. So those are quite specific and maybe just touching on various points. But the basic rule would be around your customer acquisition cost. So, how much money are you spending to acquire one customer? And before you start any activity, you need to understand what that is. So let's just say, for argument's sake, my customer acquisition cost is £20. So I have to spend £20 in marketing to get one customer.
Right, yeah.
So really, you need to be then looking to see what that is in reality. So that's your target, but what is it coming in at once your activity is underway? And how is that looking? And actually, is it £40? actually, well, if it is, then you need to do something to change that and tweak your marketing or messages. Maybe something really isn't working, or is it working really well and it's £5? So there are things like that. And there are so many KPIs broadly, like a customer acquisition cost, or whether it's for each separate bit of media to see how things are working. But I always say to my clients, you know, keep tracking, keep looking at your data, keep understanding what's happening, because there might be things that you don't know. Your website, you might have a website load time. It takes a long time for the pages to load, which you might not know. Visitors might be leaving the site on certain pages. Again, why? So it's all in the data. So I've just encouraged people to look at their data and just continually tweak things as their marketing evolves.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's so much data available these days. There's so many places to look. I suppose as a small business, it might be easy to say, well, I can't do all that. You know, if you're a big corporation, you can look at all of the streams of data you've got. You can do all the maths on it and work everything out. But if it's one person running their business, I don't know, what would you kind of suggest perhaps as a focus for somebody if they feel that it's a bit overwhelming almost, all the data that's out there? Where would you perhaps put your energy if you were a very small business wanting to run a successful marketing strategy? What would be your basic sort of tips for them?
I think it would come back to the actual tactics you're using to deliver the strategy. So your marketing strategy, your plan of activity doesn't have to be 10 things. It needs to be manageable for you. It could just be 2 things. Yeah. So that was the first thing I would say, is don't think you have to do everything all at once to generate more business. Do things that are quick wins, that are maybe familiar to you, that you might already have in place, that you can just tweak and change up. And it could just be a couple of things. But I would just say at this point, it is the old analogy of have a couple of things, whatever you do, do it well. So it's far better to have those 2 things that work brilliantly for you, let's just say Facebook and Instagram, and they're working brilliantly for you, and you have some very simple funnels that new customer inquiries and interest drips into, and that's manageable. If that works for you and that drives you new customers, just continue to tweak and change it and optimize it. But I wouldn't add anything else, unless, again, you've got the resource to do that. Don't think you have to have something huge and something really big in your marketing. If it's just 2 channels and it works, then that's brilliant. Because marketing, as you know, has to be done consistently. So if you've got 2 channels that you do consistently, that's far better than having 5 that you do periodically. Yeah. So that would be the first thing I say. But I think in general, I would just say look at your customer acquisition cost and really understand how much you have to spend to get a customer, and keep on top of that general figure.
Good tips. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's been really useful looking at these aspects of marketing with you today. Thank you very much for agreeing to come on and talk to us. And we hope everybody has managed to gain something from that, and encourage you to follow up on the other topic areas that are linked to this. Andrea Hardiman from All About the Message, thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. It's an absolute pleasure. Take care.